What's going on, guys? Hey, my name is Logan Manzanares, and today I'm going to go over a super cool creative financing strategy for you called lease options. So if you want to know exactly what a lease option is and how you can apply it either as a seller or as a buyer, watch this video. Hey guys, if you're new here, my name is Logan Manzanares. I'm a fitness professional. I'm a business owner. I'm a real estate investor. Me and my wife currently have over $5 million in real estate that cash flows well over 6 figures every single year. And I make these videos in this channel for you so you can learn how you can do exactly the same thing, how you can invest in real estate, create passive income to make sure that you can do whatever you want with who you want, however much you want to do it. So without further ado, let's dive into the video. All right, guys, let's talk about what a lease option is in our creative financing series here. And so what is lease option? Well, let me tell you what lease option is. So last year, my mom, who I'm super proud of, she got into real estate, and how she got into real estate was through a lease option. And so what she did is she had a friend who lived in this little town called Augusta, that her and my stepdad, they would do service work for. So my stepdad, he owns a HVAC company, or not owns a HVAC company, he does like HVAC work for people on the side. And so basically got with this couple up in Augusta, and they had this property that had 2 houses and a cabin on it, and they had renters in there, but they really didn't want to have renters in there. And my mom was like, hey, like, we're trying to get into real estate. And he's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I could lease option this place to you, and then eventually you could potentially buy it. My mom was like, huh, what's that? And so she came to me, and so I started to explain to her what a lease option is and what I meant by that. So basically what a lease option is there's 2 agreements, right? You have a lease, just like she's a tenant, that says that, hey, she's going to pay $1,100 every single month, and that lease is set for 1 year. But it's automatically renewed based on the purchase contract. And so the purchase contract says that they have all their little details. So the purchase contract says like, hey, Suzette, which is my mom's name, has the right to buy this home based on this purchase price, and it must be executed within a certain amount of time, which for hers, I believe it's 5 years. And so basically there's 2 different contracts, right? So there's a lease contract, and then there's a purchase, there's an option to buy contract, okay? Now, keep in mind that this does not give my mom the rights to this home, right? The home is still deeded and is still entitled by the owner. My mom just has the option to buy it, okay? And so, but here's the coolest part that she negotiated on this, in this whole process, is that her rent, 100% of her rent is going towards that principal balance, okay? And so whatever price that they agreed upon, like her $1,100 that she pays every single month, 100% of it goes to principal, which is freaking insane. Like, that is the beauty of doing a lease option agreement, is that you actually get to pick your principal and interest. You get to pick your terms, right? So that is a huge advantage for her. And when she goes execute that, so let's say she takes 2 or 3 years to execute that, so that'd be an additional $12,000 per year. Let's say easy math, obviously a little bit more than that. You know, I guess it'd be like $1,300. Let's say she was after 2 years, that would be what? That would be $26,000 that she would have towards her towards equity of the purchase price of the property, which is a huge advantage for her as a buyer, okay? And so let's go ahead and dive into a couple more advantages for her as a buyer as well. Another advantage is that she doesn't need traditional financing, right? She doesn't have to go to a bank. She doesn't have to go to Wells Fargo, the Chases, and say, hey, will you give me a loan, right? Because basically what this guy's doing is he's giving her the loan, which is huge. And she gets the first right to buy the home, so he can't sell to anybody else unless she defaults on her agreement, which again, now she has the first right to that property. And the best part is that she gets to build equity over time, which in most situations you can never do that until, like, it basically gives her the opportunity that when she's ready, when she gets all of her financing and stuff in order, she can go to the bank and say, hey, like, this is what the property's worth, here's what I have in equity, and they're more likely to lend to her because she's already built up a track record just so that she can actually pay for this property. Now, what are some of the cons and the buyer in the situation? Well, the cons could be that she set this agreement, and in her situation, she didn't put any money down on the front end, but usually in these types of situations, the seller will ask the buyer to put down, you know, $3,000 to $10,000 as a down payment, basically to say, hey, I'm serious about this. I'm actually going to execute this agreement, right? And that money is called an option, and it's non-refundable, and it doesn't go towards your rent whatsoever, right? She basically says that, yes, I'm serious about buying this property. So one of the cons of being a buyer is that after, let's say the time frame, let's say you set 5 years, after 5 years, you don't execute that agreement, that $10,000 that you paid on the front end, like, it just like stays in the seller's pocket. You don't get that money back. And usually you paid a little bit higher rent because you wanted the option to buy the property as well. And guess what? You don't get any of that rent back either. So those are some of the cons of being a buyer in the situation. Now, what are the benefits of being a seller in that situation? Well, one of the key things is that you actually get a down payment from the buyer, right? So again, anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 in your pocket, right? And you get to command a little bit higher rent because the person who's buying the option to buy, like, they're willing to pay a little bit more because they want the option to actually buy the property. So you're able to command a little bit higher rent, maybe a couple hundred to maybe $500 more per month an extra cash flow that you get to put right in your pocket. Okay. You're also going to get a tenant who actually wants to buy the home. So they're going to treat it like it's their home. So guess what? You don't have maintenance requests. You don't have tenants constantly calling you about every little nick and thing, like they fix it themselves. And actually, inside your agreement, you can put it in there saying like, hey, it's your responsibility to fix anything under a certain dollar amount. Let's just say it's $500. Okay. Now you're not getting calls about little things like backed up toilets or sinks or whatever it may be. Like that's the job of the tenant buyer now in the situation. Right? The next thing you get is that like you still own the home as a seller, right? You still own the home. So you still get to collect depreciation. You still get to collect all the tax benefits of owning a home. You just literally get to connect a higher rent and a bigger down payment. So that's a huge advantage as well. And like if for some reason that the tenant buyer, they don't execute that agreement after, let's say you set it for 5 years, guess what? You get to keep that option money. You get to keep all that extra rent that you paid for, and you can do it all over again. And so that's a huge advantage of being a seller in the situation. Now, that shouldn't be your goal. You should always be working with the buyer to help them buy the property. That means helping them get their credit taken care of, making sure that they have enough down payment. Like you should be working with that person to do it. But for some reason they don't execute on it. The worst case scenario for you as a seller is that you get the property literally back and you get to do it all over again. So that's one of the benefits, one of the huge benefits of being a seller in this situation. Now, what are some of the cons of being a seller in a lease option situation? Well, some of the cons are that you technically lose control over the asset, right? So that tenant buyer now, like they own that contract and they have the right to execute it, and they could also sell it as well. And so they basically get control over the asset. So that would be one of the cons of doing a lease option in this situation. And for some reason that the market goes way up and you do set a purchase price on it, guess who gets to scoop up all that equity? Well, that would be the tenant buyer. So that can be some of the cons of doing a lease option for you as a seller. And so regardless if you're a seller or you're a buyer, lease option could be a tremendous strategy for you based on your situation, especially if you are not able to get financing right now, or as a seller, if you want to give someone the opportunity to buy a home, or you don't want to deal with tax situation, or you want to be able to just command a higher rent, or maybe you live out of town. And so instead of dealing with the property management company, you sell it on the lease option to give you the ability to basically invest out of state without having to worry about tenants and worry about backed up toilets and little maintenance requests. So there's lots of advantages for both sellers and for buyers. And so make sure you always think about lease option as your strategy, depending on what side of the door that you're on. So without further ado, hope you like this video. If you do, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, let me know if you like this, if you want to hear more videos about how to get into properties with creative financing. So without further ado, my name is Logan Manzanares. I am out. Bye.